Welcome to Hochoka Podcast.
Darkness gets a lot of bad press. Few of us want to be in a dark place or living in the darkest hour. Many are afraid of the dark, the absence of light, and it is under the cover of darkness that nefarious deeds go unseen. Colossians 1:13 proclaims, "He has rescued us from the power of darkness." But Dr. Damian Costello tells us that indigenous and Catholic traditions alike tell us that darkness is nothing less than sacred. Listen. Hello, Madaki Api. Welcome to Hochoka here at the center of St. Joseph's Indian School's campus. I'm Scott Wooster, your Hochoka host, and we're glad you've joined our circle with Dr. Damian Costello, a frequent guest who joins us today to bring another fresh perspective on Catholicism through an indigenous lens. Welcome, Damian.
Thank you, Scott. Good to be here.
So here we are in December, coming close to the solstice, shortest time of the year, and we're in a lot of dark right now. Okay, the days are short, and we're north. You know, we're one of those northern states in the U.S., and we're in the northern hemisphere, so we see a lot of dark. And it's this time of year that the church serves up Advent, which is a season of sacred darkness, right? And so for our audience who may not be familiar with Advent, can you just kind of give us a Advent 101 in a couple minutes or less?
Sure. So Advent is actually a time of preparation for the coming of the perfect light, right? Jesus is often called the light of the world, and we celebrate right around the solstice the return of the light, right? So there's good reason to think that Jesus actually was born at that time. We're not sure, but there's also great wisdom in saying that he is born at the time when the sun starts to return. You know, across the world, indigenous traditions celebrate the return of light. And so Advent prepares us for that in the darkest time of the year. And so, you know, in indigenous context, when you have a ceremony, you don't just show up out of your regular life. You got to be ready spiritually. Right. You've got to prepare. So when you dance Sundance, those months beforehand, you're going to sweat. You're fasting. You're praying. You're getting your prayer ties together. You're putting your house in spiritual order, so to speak. And so that's what Advent is designed to do. It's
a preparation for that time.
Yes.
And it lasts how long?
4 weeks.
4 weeks,
yes.
Okay. We talk about that the historical perspective of the way we live now compared to the way we used to. In olden times, December would have looked a lot different than it does now. Our world looks much different. The light is wholly different than it was back in the day. Can you talk a little bit about about the changes?
I mean, that's probably one of the biggest changes that we've created in our human ecosystems, is that we are constantly bombarded by light. All the time. We can't escape it. So much so, we talk about light pollution. We've sort of accomplished what I think our ancestors would have seen as impossible, that we could erase the stars in a lot of our communities because of all of the light around us.
Right.
We are just not comfortable with it because we don't experience it. I don't know if you've ever been to a place in the world where there isn't a lot of artificial light, and walking with people who haven't had their eyes trained to always have a lot of light. I can remember being in different places where I'm stumbling around in the dark, and these people are walking like it's daytime. They can see everything.
Yeah.
We are no longer relatives to the dark.
Right. And I love that saying, erased the stars. I just think that's such a powerful way to say that we've basically done that. You know, we don't know how to live in that way anymore. So we try to banish the darkness in a way. But you're saying, hold on, the presence of the darkness is important and it's effective. And what leads you to that?
Well, like many things that I bring to Hochoka, indigenous traditions have, you know, through my own experience, opened me up to these areas of my life that I wouldn't have really even understood were missing. But then open these doors and show incredible beauty and life-giving power that's all around us. So, I know from your experience, one of the most practical and immediate experiences we have with darkness in indigenous context is the sweat lodge.
For sure.
You go into the darkness, and you are quite literally reborn physically and spiritually through that process. In the Navajo tradition, they talk about the sweat lodge being called Chahalhelpiaj, the little darkness.
Okay.
Where it creates mother darkness, right? A lot of ceremonies are also conducted at nighttime. And it's through that darkness that opens up the spirit world, that allows them to engage with you in a way that doesn't happen when you're under that glaring sun in the same way.
So, and I remember my first Inipi ceremony or sweat lodge ceremony, and being in there, and you as a kid and even as an adult, you may pray in the dark, but it's a whole different way of experiencing that. You're in a 100% dark space with other people praying out loud, and you're calling spirits in, and we always tell. I go into a lot of sweats with the children here at St. Joe's, and we always tell them, keep your eyes open, because you don't know what you'll end up seeing. And it's amazing what they will tell you if you keep your eyes open and keep yourself aware. And I just think that's such a powerful thing.
Well, I did want to bring up the importance of keeping your eyes open in the darkness. Like, we've all had this experience, and I think this happens spiritually in these contexts, is when you look directly at something in the dark, you don't see it. You look away, the corners of your eyes are much more sensitive to the little light that there is. And so it trains you to expand your vision and your awareness. It very practically, and that's in a physical sense, but opens you up spiritually to be able to do that, so that you are now sensing in sort of a 360-degree way instead of just our laser straight ahead focus.
Yeah. We're talking about science here. We're talking about rods and cones and those kinds of things too. But obviously the indigenous people they were not studying rods and cones in the time, but they knew, because of that connection and because they lived, so close to the earth, that I would assume that they were hyper aware of the fact that when you turn the lights out completely, there are some things that are going to happen that you would see that you would not see outside of that.
I don't want to take us too far down a rabbit trail, but this is just too tempting.
Yeah.
When Europeans, modern Western people first showed up in these contexts, they were so quick to say, science does not prove what you're saying. We had learned some science and some truth. But we're starting to find out that our science is catching up to a lot of indigenous teachings. We didn't have the science to understand it.
Right.
We are now starting to understand that these ways of living and being in the world actually are a lot more accurate than our science 100 years ago. And I think one great example is dark energy. Right? We look out into the universe, we see the stars, and we say, wow, beautiful stars, but look at all of that empty space. We're all alone. It's a vast void of nothingness. Well, we now know that, 68% of the universe is made up of dark matter, dark energy, that we can't see with our eyes. We couldn't measure until very recently, but is actually the majority of what exists.
Right. I'm a yin-yang kind of guy. I love the juxtaposition of darkness and light and opposites and how that all works together. I also hear you saying that darkness is not the bad opposite of light. It's never that simple. Opposites, being so combative, often isn't the case. They're complementary. The two opposites are complementary. It's a different kind of positive energy. Can you speak to that a little bit and maybe about the book of Daniel?
Sure. And just to clarify, remind our audience that when we say darkness, we're not saying bad. We're not saying evil. We're not saying bad acts. We're talking about literal darkness. And indigenous people, and what we've lost is that light and darkness pair together. One is not the absence of the other. It's something different that complements. And so you alluded to the book of Daniel. Like you'll see in biblical context that just like in indigenous contexts where you pair the light and darkness together as complementary pairs, the book of Daniel does the same thing. It goes, the beautiful canticle of the three youths that's said every Sunday and on feast days during morning prayer. It goes through all of the different parts of creation and calls on it to bless the Lord. So it'll go night and day, bless the Lord. Light and darkness, bless the Lord. So we aren't having one positive thing that's really good, another negative thing that we're trying to get rid of. We're looking at all of creation and understanding that difference works together and makes this beautiful world what it is.
And in the indigenous tradition, God, that's so true with what you say, I think, because you do have the ceremonies like the Inipi. You have house ceremonies where you're setting up the altar in a house. You're blocking all the windows. You're getting rid of all the furniture, any ambient light at all, and you're making it perfectly dark, and you're calling in the spirits in that darkness. But you have the flip side of that with the sun dance, which is completely sun-based. It's done during the day, between the time the sun comes up and the sun goes down. So you have that night and day, bless the Lord, just said in a different way. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And I think that's what's happening with Advent, is that we have this time of preparation in the darkness so that we can welcome and recognize the perfect light. Now, it's not the same as the Sundance where you are in the presence of the hot sun being bathed and baked in it all day long for
Nothing is,
days.
yes. Yep.
But it's through that preparation in the Sunday and the sweat lodge that allows you to endure and receive the spiritual blessings of the Sundance. And it's the same way for Advent and Christmas.
So I'm a guy, when the days are shortened in the wintertime, for a long time I struggled with it, and I know many people do. The days are shortened, you're not getting the light. And, people talk about seasonal affective disorder, and that's just a name for it. But I think it's hard on people with circadian rhythms and such. But I had I've even sat in front of a lamp, one of the therapeutic lamps, and this is my counselor background coming out now, but at some point I was able to embrace that darkness too, and just make that a part of who I am, and enjoy it and not see it as a bad thing. Does that make sense to you?
I don't want to dismiss what the reality that people, suffer from seasonal affective disorder, but perhaps part of that is that we don't have the cultural equipment to help us navigate that. The wintertime darkness was when we told stories. We saved those sacred stories for the wintertime. And that's when we gathered as communities and we shared in this kind of way. And we don't do that anymore in the same way.
No. And I have to say that my experience with the Sweat Lodge, with being in ceremonies and all of that, it's very mystical, and what you're saying sounds very mystical too.
Mystical in the best sense. Mysticism is a very positive thing. Very, very deep prayer is how we could understand it. And we oftentimes in our sort of contemporary form, we think about spirituality as sort of a list of things we believe, or all the stuff we know. When in reality, spirituality, prayer, ceremony is about mystery. It's about being open to all of the life and depth around us that we can't fully understand. God is so much far, far, far beyond our ability to understand. But darkness and in prayer is about a living relationship, about engaging with mystery. And so in the Catholic mystical tradition, darkness is understood as a sort of perfect light where the things we don't know can come to us, where we don't receive light, but rather are enveloped by all of the spirits and the mystery around us.
And I love that as a metaphor of darkness, as a metaphor for what we don't understand. You talk about dark matter, you talk about the whole of what we don't understand, right, could fill the universe. And if you use the word wakantika, the great mystery, it's a mystery. I don't have the answers. It's not that simple. So darkness is as big a thing as you could possibly imagine in that context. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think it's in the darkness, the best of the darkness, so in the sweat lodge, where you sort of lose all of the negative trappings of what contains you, right? A lot of our human existence is allowing ourselves, or even choosing to be bound by our limitations. The things we think we know, the things we think we are, things we believe about ourselves that aren't really true. And in the darkness, in the sweat lodge, those things are blurred and even erased.
Yeah.
And you become part of something much bigger.
Yeah, it sort of makes humility mandatory in a way. I mean, at least that's been my experience. I can't say that's universal, but you get in the dark and there's nothing to see, there's nothing to be. It's just you and your prayer.
And so coming back to Advent, you can think of the whole world, or our whole world here in the northern hemisphere, sort of becoming a ceremony, right? It's that time in which all of creation enters into the Inipi and enters into the lodge, opens itself up, and allows the sort of glimpses you catch out of the corner of your eye of this divine darkness, this super luminosity, the mystery of all around us, opens us up so that we are able to receive the perfect light that comes in Christ at this time of the year.
And so at this time of the year, I'm not a practicing Catholic, but I understand, I love the idea of it being a preparation for something, and you can see it in the way that this period of darkness leads into the light, the birth of Christ, or you're preparing for that in some way. Just like being in the Inipi, the darkness is so important, but so is the light when you step out of the Inipi and you come out renewed and you come into that place. So I just think that's a powerful message.
And don't worry, Scott, the earth is a practicing Catholic, so it still goes on whether you are or not.
There we go. It doesn't matter, does it? Right? Yeah. Fresh perspectives. There we go. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Scott.
And thank you to our audience for joining us here at the center of St. Joseph's Indian School campus at Ho-Chokeh, where we talk about issues that are central to Native American education today. Until next time, stay centered.